Here on the Colour of Country Life Flow FM, we're speaking with the Minister for Regionalisation, Bridget McKenzie. Thanks for joining us today on the day of your keynote address on this topic.
Fantastic to be with you.
Now, what's the vision thing here when it comes to regionalisation? What's the plan from the federal government?
Well, I think we have to focus on making it easier for people to live and work outside major cities. I obviously envision a future Australia that has many regional capitals. Back in 1911, 40% of Australia's population lived in capital cities, and today it's close to 70%. So we've seen with COVID-19 more and more Australians wanting to reconnect with their families, get a better work-life balance and reconnect with the natural environment and their communities, which you can all do out in the regions. And we've seen this huge organic shift of people moving away from capital cities out into regional towns and capitals. And we really need to make sure that we bed that growth down and make sure regional capitals going forward, and I'm talking to 2050, are the places to grow and prosper, to be population centres, shall we say, in excess of 300,000 people.
And when you mentioned 2050, is there sort of a goal there in terms of what the balance is? About 66 to 70%, as you say now, metro to regional. What would be ideal? 50% by then?
Well, what I'm calling for is that we have a goal of 50% of our future population growth is actually taking place out in the regions. That's what I want to see. I don't think government in a free society like Australia should be dictating to our people from Adelaide or people from Melbourne or Sydney where they should live, but we should absolutely be looking at that future population growth to be heading out into the regions. And the number 1, 2 and 3 reasons why people will shift out to rural and regional Australia is because they've got a great job, a fantastic career out there that's well paying. And we've got plenty of those now. So getting industry shifting, getting big business relocating, making sure that our regional capitals are places with great digital connectivity, mean that if you're working for one of those big employers, say Telstra's just recently on the back of COVID-19 having a workplace employment policy where you can basically live anywhere and still work for Telstra. So we've got great connectivity out in the regions, so that means that even big employers like those working for our national industries such as Telstra will be able to live anywhere in the country, and we're hoping that they'll come out and live in the regions.
Now, you say government won't tell people to where to live, but they can certainly grease the wheels with tax incentives and funding. Are there some moves that the government's going to make in this direction to put some money behind the regionalisation vision?
Well, we absolutely are going to. If you look at in 1996, election campaign, for instance, the Liberal National, then opposition, had a promise to duplicate the Pacific Highway between Sydney and Brisbane, to finish that work over a 20-year period. Now, that's been completed in recent times, and you've seen values along that highway double in that 20 years. We're going to see the same thing with the inland rail infrastructure investment, which is obviously inland rail from Melbourne to Brisbane and now Brisbane to Gladstone. And we're going to see a subsequent flourishing along that route, for instance. So government has a role in investing in infrastructure that's going to attract industry and people and therefore drive up values for those who live and work there. But we've got to get the livability piece right as well. We know that we've got, I think, 71,000 job vacancies across regional Australia right now. And it's not just fruit pickers. There are professional jobs, globally focused careers in agriculture, manufacturing and mining going begging right now. So we've got the job demand there. We also need to get that livability and accessibility piece right. And that means making sure people can access great education facilities for their kids and making sure the health services are up to scratch. And they're the sorts of things that I'm looking at promoting. One of the things I mentioned in my speech was getting a framework for government investment. At the moment, state and federal governments tend to scattergun their investment across regional communities. we need to actually harness that and leverage that investment in quite a strategic and targeted way. And so identifying those regional capitals that are primed for that next level of growth, we call them the second-tier cities, they're where we're going to be focusing our investment. And until 2020, my department advises me that just at the federal government level, we're looking at investing in excess of $100 billion into the regions. We need to make sure a lot of that is strategically focused on those second-tier cities so that we can have major capitals to really redistribute our population and provide prosperous, sustainable options for people that live in the regions.
Well, one of our areas we broadcast in is the Riverina, and Wagga Wagga is growing very fast. The New South Wales farmers indicated recently they're concerned about prime agricultural land on the fringes of regional cities. Is there something in this policy to also make sure we're not putting aside some of that best land that's used for food production?
I think that is actually a sensible discussion that needs to be had. I mean, even if you look at the growth of Sydney, you look at the growth of Melbourne, and we had those beautiful market garden areas out at Coldstream, which are now all under concrete. So as a country, we need to decide, I think, where we're going to grow food. You've got similar questions being asked about solar farm projects being put on prime agricultural land too. So I think it is absolutely a sensible discussion for primary producers, state and federal governments to be having around land use and how we actually do the planning around that. But obviously that is a local government and state government issue primarily. There won't be anything specifically in my regionalisation policy to address that because that's better dealt with other levels of government. But it is absolutely a sensible discussion. We want to be having a $100 billion agricultural industry by 2030. That means we're going to have a lot of great prime agricultural land with good rainfall, fantastic soil to grow that product, whether it's grains or protein. So we have to have the conversation and we have to make sure a sensible outcome is reached.
Now, just lastly, you've mentioned some transport infrastructure there as part of where maybe the spending's going to go. Australia is one of the most sparsely populated countries in the world. Water and energy would certainly help if we had security on those fronts to grow very rapidly. Would there be some spending on, say, some nation-building water projects in the Murray-Darling Basin or some future energy technologies deployed in the regions to make those things a reality?
Ricky, great questions. And, in our traditional historical development as a country, we're the driest continent on earth, and would you be putting cities and even capital cities where you've put them if we had have understood the water security situation a bit better? I don't think so. So you have seen major dam announcements from the Liberal National government, and we're looking forward to partnering with state governments to deliver those when and where we can. I think water security is actually one of the pieces of my framework, so we won't be developing areas that don't have secure access to water because obviously that's just not a sustainable proposition going forward. When you come to energy, I'm quite excited about the energy mix going forward. We've got obviously record investment into solar energy. You've seen some examples around the country of communities using small country communities using a cooperative approach. In our technology not taxes roadmap to a low emissions future by 2050, we're looking at small nuclear reactors, which is something that regional communities will be able to actually examine to get access to affordable and reliable energy sources. And we know that gas will be a big part of our future going forward, not just in exports, but domestically, ensuring we have access to reliable energy. Because if you're a food processor, for instance, or a milk processor out in the regions with a production line, you can't have breaks in your energy supply that sometimes occur if you're only relying on renewable energy, for instance. So we have to ensure that we have that baseload power generation going forward, and we're confident that we've got the settings right to secure that.
Well, Regionalisation Minister Bridget McKenzie, look forward to continuing the conversation and tracking development on this front here with us on Flow.
Fantastic, Ricky. Look forward to it.